Welcome to the Superhero of Love podcast. I am Bridget Fonger, and I wrote a book called Superhero of Love, Heal Your Broken Heart, and Then Go Save the World. My book is all about helping people love and be loved more than ever. I believe we all have a superhero of love inside of us. Yes, even you, superhero. And in this podcast, I talk to people who are all about helping us all tap into that superhero. May this episode make a difference for your heart. Let's get this party started. Welcome, James Redfield, to the Superhero of Love podcast.
Well, I'm glad to be with you, Bridget.
It's been way too long since we've seen each other. I usually, when I get really excited about guests, I speak in this really high-pitched voice, and I'm consciously trying to keep my voice normal because I'm so excited that you're on the podcast. Because here's what you need to know that you may not know, is that you are you are probably the most invoked author in this podcast. Almost everybody mentions the Celestine Prophecy on this call. I mean, on this podcast. So and you were your book, Celestine Prophecy, and you personally were very important to me. So let's talk about that. So first, just to introduce you formally, James Redfield is the author of the Celestine Prophecy that changed my life, the 10th Insight Holding the Vision, the Secret of Shambhala in Search of the 11th Insight, and the 12th Insight. Is that the full title of the 12th Insight? For some reason, I don't have it in front of me.
It's the 12th Insight, the Hour of Decision.
The Hour of Decision.
Out, in just after 2012, and the Mayan calendar ending. And, when the debate then was, what does it mean?
Right.
Why was it an ending? Of course, it turned out not to be any kind of ending. So then it must be a new beginning. And that's what I argue for in the 12th Insight, that we, right there at that moment, were able to tune into to abundant energy that took us to a different level of creativity and an intuitive guidance, and all that changed. Now, if you weren't tuned into that, not much changed, but I believe that there was a profound shift that happened in consciousness, and it just played out exactly that way. A lot of things are happening right now that I'm on the road talking about, and one is the re-release.
That you're going to be in Los Angeles. You were just in Boulder, so we missed getting the word out there for Boulder, but you're going to be in Los Angeles on February 11th. So that's exciting. I'll be there. So now I want to go backwards, though, and talk about how I first met you and how you changed my life. So first of all, I was about to open a drive-through cappuccino place in Los Angeles, the first drive-through cappuccino place ever. And I was on what was going to be my final vacation before venturing into that new world. And I was reading the Celestine Prophecy while we were on vacation in Venezuela. So I was, close to Peru, where it was mostly set. And anyway, it was just such a life-changing book for me, because what it did for me, along with other things, learning about power struggles and control dramas, it really had me pay attention to synchronicities in my life. And I know that that's a lot of people's huge takeaway, because that's an enormous takeaway to become newly aware of synchronicities. And we came home, and just 5 hours after we got home, the Northridge earthquake hit, and we thought the back of our house had fallen down the hill. Anyway, we had to help neighbors. It was a huge emergency where we were. And I realized in that moment, I didn't want to do what I had set out to do. And it was in large part because it felt like my soul was kind of settled by the Celestine Prophecy in a new way. And I started paying attention to the synchronicities, and the synchronicities all said, open an angel store. And then through the angel store, and I immediately started getting your newsletters, Celestine Vision, which, by the way, listeners, if you too were a subscriber to the Celestine Vision back in the day, it was a great newsletter, and it's now basically housed on your website, celestinevision.com, which is great. Thank you for that. And at my angel store, though, I'm not going to go on too much longer, but I do need to tell these stories because they're so great, and they're so telling of your power in my life. And I'm just one of millions of stories like this. So for anybody that is listening that hasn't heard the Celestine Prophecy, we all have our Celestine Prophecy life-changing stories, right? So through the angel story, though, I first met you, and I met Carol Adrian, who I ended up hosting at a workshop at my future writing partner's house, Judy O'Neill. We wrote the Lazy Woman's Guide together at her house. So then I knew Carol Adrian. And then in 2006, I was producing an event called Celebration of Oneness at the Pasadena Civic Auditorium. And that's where I met Sally for the first time, or maybe it was the second time, but where I met you guys in a new way. Because during one of the breaks, when you went to lunch and you came back to do the book signing, you came back with a dog in a dog carrier that looked exactly like my dog, Lucy. And I started to lunge towards Sally. And of course, she instinctively pulled back from my lunge because I thought somebody was playing a joke on me and had sent Lucy with you guys. And we then cut to having a play date with our dogs. Toby and Lucy had a play date and they fell in love, and then they ended up having babies. And Tallulah is your furry granddaughter, my daughter, my furry daughter.
That was all fun. That was all synchronicity playing out too, you know.
That synchronicity was outrageous because listen to this element of the synchronicity. The week before, I had been told that the stud that she was going to mate with, when I bought her from a friend's cousin, they said, you really need to mate her. We asked that all the owners of the girl dogs mate their dogs. And I was like, oh no, I'm a rescue dog. I've always had rescues. I don't do that kind of thing. And they were like, well, we really ask that you do that. So I thought, all right, I'll give it a shot. I found a stud. And the week before, the stud was deemed infertile. And literally, this was several days later that this synchronicity happened. And that's the level of synchronicities that everybody has, that everyone shares. And I just want to say, on behalf of all of us, thank you for shining the light on this opening to our divinity.
That's exactly what it is. You know, it's really fun back then. Celestine Prophecy came out and it immediately became a pass-along book. So we never did much with the book. I mean, we started off visiting bookstores and speaking at small bookstores, and it just took off. And as you know, we had our own edition with our own publishing company, and then that got bought up by a New York publisher, and it went global. But all along, it only did that because it was a pass-along book, and it was a pass-along book because the major assumptions in the book were right, and that is that we were tuning into a new level of consciousness, and the first thing that shows up when you do that is synchronicity. So everybody was going, okay, yeah, I'm having these synchronicities. This is real. This is not something we're making up. And so it became a pass-along book, and just took me on a journey back then. And through all four of the books, and those books were spread out primarily because I was describing insights that I believed were coming into the culture in a series. So I knew there were 9 that were already there, and I had the publisher say, "Well, look, you have to write a new book right away. What why are you taking so long?" And I'm going, look. I'm describing something that I see out there that's real, so I can't talk about a 10th insight. The first book went 1 through 9, but I can't talk about a 10th insight until I really see one happening. And it didn't take long, but probably by the mid to late 90s, sometime around 96 or 7, what was occurring in the world, I thought, was a genuine another insight. And that was, of course, the 10th insight, which is the insight of realizing that we live in a spiritual universe and that we come from a spiritual place, we come into this dimension, and we do return. Heaven is not just this imaginary place with clouds and people playing harps. This is a real dimension, the afterlife. And that's when all the stories, were coming through from the near-death research and all these testimonials of people who had a near-death experience, went over to the afterlife and started to describe it. Researchers started to compile all the testimony. And it was a awakening, revelation that this is, we come from a real place. The afterlife is a real place. It's not imaginary. We for a long time, humans denied the idea of death so hard, they had to really deny the idea of a real heaven out there, right? We realized it was part of the program. We do, it's part of the program. We come from the afterlife, we do what we're supposed to do here, hopefully, and we go back. So that was a big revelation, but they weren't done, because 2 or 3 years after that, there was this 11th revelation, and it had to do with the power of intention. Remember when The Secret came out, the Celestine Prophecy movie came out, or was beginning to be written, and it was all about the power of intention. And so this was, all of a sudden, prayer was not just this imaginary thing in the Bible, It was suddenly, wow, we have this intention power. It's a spiritual power. We have to be tuned in lots of ways to be able to maximize that intention power. But that's exactly what began to happen. Now, we're just, right now, as we integrate all this together into a different kind of lifestyle, more spiritual lifestyle, I think that we're realizing exactly what it takes to have a high-powered intention manifestation power. But this is not something that is New Age, bull. This is a real power, part of consciousness. And what we're doing now, though, is moving through really the 12th insight, which is how this looks integrated into life, a full life. How do you practice all of these? And this is my message now. We're moving from insight, which is kind of a state change where you get all this inspiration energy, and you deal with culture control dramas, and you deal with synchronicity and your sense of mission and all that in pieces. But what's happening is that we're beginning to make it a full lifestyle. So we're moving from insight to what I call ability. So these insights are now becoming abilities, and it's happening slowly. But it is happening, and one point of evidence about that is that we have two new generations coming online with this, and the reason I'm out on the road now and talking about this everywhere I can is because these two generations are swapping the Celestine Prophecy around there in greater numbers. My publisher called and said, "What are you doing with the Celestine Prophecy?" I said, "I'm not doing anything." He says, "Flying off the shelves again because of some reason." So we started doing research. It's millennials.
Okay, listen to this. Can I just tell you, do you know this? Do you know about rappers? So listen to this.
Okay.
I found a list that just went online a couple weeks ago. 10 critically acclaimed books rappers live by. Your book is one of those top 10 books. Rappers who love it: Jay-Z, P. Diddy, and Wyclef Jean.
That's right. And they're passing other books around too. It's not just the Celestine Prophecy, because it is, they're starting to tune in. And the way I like to talk about this is that, every generation hits astrological key points, key ages, and things happen differently. You hit 30, what does every generation think? Oh my God, I have to grow up? Are you kidding me? I have to start to make a living? No, surely not. And then past 30, what happens is that we try and finally do that. We do the very often the coupling thing. We do the raising children. We get that together until age 38. And in the sky, Pluto comes around and it squares 90 degrees from where it was when you were born. And so this bulk, this it's got a wide span. So it very often hits a whole generation at the same time period. Now,
wow.
back to the Celestine Prophecy, when it came out, baby boomers were reaching 38, and that's the age Pluto square Pluto starts to hit. It usually hangs around until about age 41. And what Pluto makes you think is, wow, 40 is rushing right at me. If I'm going to do what I really want to do in life, I've got to get going, right? So 38 is all this questioning, what I really want to do. And you've got a whole generation of millennials, the leading mass edge of millennials is passing through 38 right now. So that's why I'm not surprised that they're passing around spiritual books, including the Celestine Prophecy.
Oh my God, it's so exciting. So I was asking friends what they wanted me to ask you, because everybody has questions for you, but the overarching question that people wanted me to ask you is, has anything changed with your beliefs since Celestine Prophecy? Is there anything in Celestine Prophecy that has shifted for you in your understanding? To me, it just feels like it's a forever book. I think that's why it's jumping off the shelves again, like it's evergreen, the wisdom in it. But people wanted to know that.
I think that I've reached a personal clarity about the third insight that is both invigorating but yet challenging. And it's this thing about moving from insight to ability. What we're doing is just moving past this level where we recognize it, and we see these synchronicities, and we talk about how great they are, and we take advantage when we can. But they're sporadic, right? They're sporadic when our life, our lives are supposed to be in a flow of synchronicity all the time. Okay, so what we're doing is we begin to master this phenomenon of synchronicity and experience it more often. We're making key reaction changes in how we view the world. And so what's happening now again is that we're taking all this more seriously and putting it into a new level of action and competence, so that we're becoming more in a synchronistic flow all the time, and more, we're tuning in more to what we really want to do in life, our missions. We want that sense of destiny unfolding, and that's what synchronistic flow does, where you just step into this flow, and if you keep it going, you have to have an attitude change in a lot of ways. So we have to stop interpreting some coincidences as negative. In other words,
right. Oh, that's so good.
If you do that. And so right now, I'm running around doing all these workshops because I believe we're figuring out, and it's the culmination of 100 years of human potential research. But we, at this moment, as we move into the ability stage with this consciousness, we know how to do it. I mean, we know exactly the right practices and reaction changes to be able to keep that flow going all the time. Now, I mentioned the third insight, because the third insight I described as the perception of how the universe responds to us, our attitudes, how it responds. But it's really bigger than that, I believe, because it defines what really is the karmic structure of this world, of this universe. And it all revolves around giving. So in the karmic structure, it's very easy, very simple. And what it is if you're a giver, if you practice giving, and you stay out of control dramas where you're taking energy from people, and you look to be a synchronicity to provide the information just in time for another person.
Oh my God, can I just stop you? So you just said, that phrase is blowing my mind. Looking to be a synchronicity is what you just said, right?
Right.
Like be
giving that I'm talking about. because, we're running around going, okay, I've seen this person in the park 3 times, and now they're sitting on the bench right across from me. I know we're supposed to have a conversation. They're going to tell me something I need to know at this moment. We're looking for our synchronicities from people, but we change our karma. We become luckier. We become protected. All the other things that are real in this world, when we practice at least equal time, trying to intuit what the person we're talking to needs to hear right at this moment.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Wow.
So that's when we that's how we become luckier. And I say this all the time, and materialists and secular people go, this is crazy. But what I say is that we've never lived by the karmic structure. We haven't en masse ever reached an alignment with the karmic structure on this planet. And once we do and practice that, we'll be protected. We'll all be very lucky. We'll be in synchronistic flow all the time. We'll all move into our missions wherever they are, and the corruption can be exposed in this world and replaced very quickly.
I've never heard you talk about karma before. I love the way you're talking about it. So do you talk about negative and positive karma, like that we can avoid?
Here it is. It's not negative. There is no negative karma. There is challenging karma. If you're out of alignment with karma and you're a taker, okay, just an ordinary person who thinks that the world's absurd and they have to take what they want in the world, from other people, whatever. They can do anything they want because people have convinced them that there's no spiritual reality. It's all just absurd somehow, What they do is they're takers. They try to dominate people for their own ends. They try to use people. It's the people who sell people things that they don't need. It's the people who mislead because it makes them feel special, or makes them feel more knowledgeable and secure in their own life because they can be put on a pedestal. They try to get power over people, and they instead of spiritual power, which is consciousness and free, they want power from corruption that they engage in. This is bad karma. Now, it's not punitive, though. It's not like you're going to have a car wreck because you do this. What happens is that if you're a taker, you draw more takers into your life. Okay, that's the karmic response. If you're a taker, more takers come in to take from you,
right? And
slow you down and you stop your flow, and not as punishment, but to show you the harm you do by acting like you do. So it's a
mirror.
Draw into your, that's right. You draw a mirror in, and you feel the hurt that you've caused other people. And it slows down. And it's the opposite of being in the flow of a positive synchronicity and being lucky and having your dreams come true. It's a very simple mastery. All you have to do is become a conscious giver. So you're not going to lie, because that's not giving. You're not going to manipulate and try to dominate people, because that's not giving. You're not going to be generous with a portion of your money, because and not be generous with some portion of your money, and that is bad karma. It's just knowing that you have to be a giving person, and the giving, it's the structure of the universe. Giving people prosper. It's always been that way. If you look at the millionaire next door, they're not criminals. They're givers.
Right. And it just occurred to me that the two things that are blowing my mind, the be a synchronicity and conscious giving, are like, if you just walk out into the world trying to be a synchronicity for somebody and see how you can consciously give to them, those two things are dovetailed, are they not? They're okay. That's beautiful.
Because if you're a giver, who do you draw in your life? People who act just like you. If you're trying to give synchronicity, you draw into your life people who try to provide a synchronicity for you. So your unfolding destiny happens faster through this process of synchronicity. It's all designed to be that way, but we've never really put it all together. And when I talk about putting it all together into a way to break through to this way of life, this new consciousness, I really talk about the human potential movement, because we're 100-year mark in where I began the true human potential movement that started with Carl Jung, almost exactly 100 years ago, who made psychoanalysis about analysis about spirituality,
right.
Not about denying our sexual issues. It's a once you look at it, it's all been worked out. It's all there. And so, the book that I'm working on now is just trying to reveal what has been put together about how to make the transformation that we're discussing now, how to move into a synchronistic flow, how to manifest your mission, how to be giving all the time, so you attract all these people who show up just on time, allow your path to continue miraculously, really.
Sally shared with me your newfound passion for enneagrams. Does that play into this landscape that we're talking about here?
Absolutely. So the enneagram, it's knowing ourselves. Okay. One of the breakthrough points is, and this happens naturally in meditation, and by the way, all the research shows that there's more meditation going on in the world right now than ever before.
Yes.
Across all 3 or 4 generations that are alive on the planet. So this changes a lot, just that. Because I think one of the breakthrough points is being able to tune into your intuitive guidance. Because knowing where to go for your next synchronicity is very important, right?
Right.
So we have to tune into our intuitive guidance. When to call the old friend, when to go to the bookstore, when to go to, to hang out in the church, or whatever it might be. You get intuitive guidance to help people at certain points, and all that, and it increases your flow. But it's this tuning in that's amplified in meditation, because but there's a missing ingredient that I believe has just been added, and it's not that the research hasn't happened so much. I mean, many of the 70s and 60s and 70s researchers on meditation revealed that it has a healing quality for our emotions. But the healing quality happens when we download not just a kind of feeling of ego peace or an ego calmness, but when we intentionally try to download our true emotional state for the flow we're talking about. And that's love, okay? All it takes is love, right? So but even people, even therapists, even people running around attracting thousands of people for their workshops will argue with me about making love an essential element.
Huh.
But it's because at the same time there's all this awakening happening, there's this secular materialism that's happening. And if you want to call that the dark, I do. That's it has less light. The more secular and materialistic it gets, the life that it produces, the darker it is, the less lightful it is. So, but it's but it's a real clash of wills that's happening right now. I don't call it a war, because it's not a war, okay? It's a secular kind of denial of consciousness and divine source and any of that. It's a denial of that, and this kind of assumption that we live in a materialistic world. It just happened. We don't know how it happened, but we have to make the best out of this material world, and there is no spirituality to be found because they have it. Okay. And no evidence for a divine spark in human consciousness. They just live there. And even people who are trying to shift the world in consciousness don't want to use love because it sounds too religious, sounds too mushy. It doesn't sound, in this secular world of ours, it seems naive and
too innocent.
And innocent, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But this is the very time that we have to reassert our agape love power, okay? And that's what it is, because it heals our emotions. Because if you download your love in this, when you're meditating, if you try to download the emotion of love, if you look for that, ask for that, intend that, it comes. It comes as much as the peace, the calmness of the ego. It comes in. It's a part of our consciousness waiting to be downloaded if we know to do it. And I think more and more people are doing that spontaneously. And it's beginning, I believe, to be discovered as a very, very quick breakthrough point for people who are stuck in their control dramas or their coping devices or their habits that they know are negative, but they can't break through because they don't have this alternative consciousness to sustain them. So the more we talk about that, the more we move into this ability to stay in this flow that I'm talking about.
My teacher, Master John Douglas, blew my mind when he brought up the concept of loving God's love, the love of God's love that we have. And if you don't have, and I realized, oh, I have that, but I didn't know I had that, loving God's love. And all of a sudden, and that just popped into my head when you were talking, because it's like the most purest, most divine love. And it's this love that begets your divine connection.
It's a free download. All you have to do is a free download, but you have to believe it's important.
Are you meeting a lot of people who are not finding it important?
I think you have to force your way to success in this.
Wow.
Whole peace thing, they're losing that, and the creative power that comes from it. Because once you download this true emotion, all the other emotions that come up in life can't get in and take you over, because love is there. Okay? Try to, but when you come back to love, that can be let go. All these emotional, this pain and this anger and this hurt, this anxiety, so much of that, the doctors want to give you a pill for. And that's that materialistic side of life. And once you go the drug route, is one side effect after another, as most people find out.
Okay. And so enneagrams are just a way to see yourself clearly, look at yourself clearly, see your subconscious drivers.
Well, what it is that at the same time you live in this higher self, you have to tame your need for whatever coping device is your favorite way to stay peaceful. It's not, they don't work very long, but we all have something, whether it's food or whether it's drugs or whether it's just basic obsessions with sports or fashion or movie stars, or it can be anything. But it's this whatever it is has to be let go of. And the Enneagram, as a symbol, as a practice, reveals, first of all, your mission in life, your natural personality for giving. And it also shows you exactly how you distort that into a defensiveness. And that defensiveness is to try to find peace by, pushing your growth away, pushing the synchronicity away, pushing any idea of a divine spark away. And of course, that's just the dark side. There's just more of the dark side, the unenlightened side, the untapped in side. So we're at the same time, all this consciousness is blossoming. There's all this materialism, reaching out for young people at the same time. And while it's not a war, as I said, it is a replacement that happens. And that's the power of this centeredness that is the state we want, that heals our emotions so that we can be contagious to other people, because our brains are wired to pop into this consciousness.
Right.
And once you see it around you, you go, what does that person have? What do they have?
I feel like that's something that I also got from the Celestine Prophecy. You're just tapping into it. Just let yourself feel it. Let yourself go there. Yeah.
The only thing that holds us back is a negative interpretation. We miss the silver lining. We miss the positive interpretation. Even though it's hard, some challenge is hard. You have to find a way to make it a positive synchronicity that keeps you in the flow.
That is like, I think that might be my aha. I had so many aha moments during this interview, but that aha moment of like not deeming a negative synchronicity a synchronicity, I think I've done that.
There's a silver lining in there. I remember at one point I was writing this, holed up in this 1-bedroom apartment, having just quit my job, gotten a divorce, deciding, oh my God, I'm 39. I've got it. If I'm gonna write this book, I need to write it, right? So I'm trying to write it. And at one point, a series of challenges occurred. It was pretty much finished, I thought, and I was looking for investors to get it out in the world. And this one person came forward, and I with money, promise of money. So I went out and spent a bunch of money to get, let's go send it to the printer. Let's go, we're going now. And he suddenly pulled out. And so I actually threw it in the bottom drawer of the chest of drawers in my apartment and thought, maybe this is not supposed to be.
Wow.
And then other things started to happen. And one of them was that I found out this guy was a real crook, and it would have been a disaster had he been part of this effort to get the Celestine Prophecy out. So I finally drug it back out of the bottom drawer and started to work on it, and it needed a lot of work. But I found, this was a positive. This wasn't a negative. Other people came in with investments, and we were able to publish it, from our own company. And so that's what we all have to do.
That's
but
beautiful.
This is not that you have to really remember to do this, right? This is not going to be just part of the fun and chatter about synchronicity. This is something that you have to actually be determined to do in your life. And that's when we move from, a kind of state of inspiration and to the real ability to keep this flow going.
That's beautiful. I love that distinction. I'm going to hang on that distinction too. Thank you so much. Oh, James, also, I didn't publicly thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the blurb for my book. That was so generous of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you are that giving. So is Sally. The both of you are just, when you're out in the world, you are all about, even if you're just walking down the street and you're not engaged with somebody that you're passing by, I feel like I've followed you walking on the street, and I feel like you're giving even to the people that you're just passing. There's just something about you.
Well, giving energy is something you have to do consciously.
It's so amazing.
I talk a lot about that, because to integrate this stuff, you eventually live in the state of tuning in. So your intuitive intelligence broadens, and you are actually able to live a kind of the synchronistic flow, and to realize that you have a wider aura, I mean, and once you see that, and it comes from giving, right? Because if you're giving energy outward to a lot of people or to the whole room you walk into, what happens is it acts as an elevator of their consciousness, because it's contagious. We're wired to live at this level. Once enough of us are doing this, and so it's an ethic. It's an ethic. But what happens is that you don't have to. I mean, we go, well, how do we keep that much energy flowing? Oh my God! Well, it's natural, because once you intend to go into a room with uplifting energy, what happens is that that energy comes through us first, lifts us into the elation of it, right, and then flows out to everybody. Right. The way to tune in to more and more energy. The more you give away, the more you get. So.
Whenever I have a dinner party or, do something where I have to expend a lot of energy that I love doing. Everybody knows I love throwing dinner parties, right? And but that takes a lot of energy, and I love that kind of giving, but it always, after I've like cleaned the last dish and, it's the next day and I'm thinking about how fun that was. And always I get some great blessings come to me, right? Like it always comes back, and like I have energy, like I'm not exhausted the next day. I have, it gives back, right? The elevation. I love that, being the elevator. It's so great.
It's human destiny. We're destined to live at this consciousness, but we can't hate. We can't spend our time yelling at a politician on the television, right? It's not a war. It's not a war. It's a living at a higher level to be a beam for other people, a beacon, an example, and it's contagious. So once we get out of the ego battles and into just living it, we have our greatest influence on people around us in the world in general. We have to just stay in that flow, and again, that means staying positive with all our creations.
Wow.
And one more point about the Enneagram. What the Enneagram does, and I'd encourage everybody listening to just find out what your type is. And we're all individuals, so we hate to be typed, right? But think of it this way: it's a God stream. Okay, it's an angle on life, 9 angles on life that becomes your natural way of being in the world, and there's a natural gift for that. Every personality type has a talent to do certain things. And so what we do is have to, once we know that, and we can read about this, once you know pretty much what your stream is, what your personality's gift is, then you can catch yourself when you misuse that gift.
Perfect.
So, just take one more minute to just give myself as an example. I'm a 5 personality type. What is the gift of the 5? Well, 5s run around in their cave with all their books, all these books. And
for those of you that are just listening, he's surrounded by books. He has books floor to ceiling behind him.
Well, the thing is, and we ponder around, and the gift of the 5 is to dig up secret information and realize that, this needs to be out in the world, and to take it out into the world, right?
Oh, beautiful.
But the coping device, misuse of that gift, is to doubt yourself. Oh my goodness, I know this is important, but who am I to take it into the world? I'm just going to go from one thing to another, so my coping device is to just try to find new information every day for the pure pleasure of it for myself, and not find something that you can actually deliver that helps people in the world. Okay. So the growth of the 5 has to be to move to integrate more of the 8, because on this Enneagram circle, there are 9 numbers that represent each of the 9 streams or types, and there's a line going from the 5. Each number has a line going somewhere. The 5 number has a line going to 8. Now 8 is a completely different type. It's if you think of all the people who are courageous, their mistake is to be bullies, but they're courageous. Man, they can get up and talk to anybody. They'll be the one running toward the gunfire to help others. They're the policemen, the soldiers that, so that's what the 5 needs, right? Think about it. So
got it.
This symbol is telling me that to get the secret information out into the world, I have to integrate this 5 stream and blend it with my 5, this 8 stream, and blend it with my 5. Right. So it points to how you grow.
Wow.
Once you know all the streams, you know exactly how to integrate the stream that you have to broaden your current personality into to grow. So it's this map of how to actualize your greatest creativity. So, all this will be in my next book, the next story, the next parable. So
that's great. And I read an article that you wrote on enneagrams that's on Celestine Vision too. I can include the link to that in the podcast notes so they can get a little window into your wisdom about this.
Right. And it's something that I believe is a true development. It's not a new insight, but it's a development of how to increase our ability to live these other insights and make them, integrated into our lifestyle, so that we become, make the bearers of this higher consciousness that we can spread to other people.
That's beautiful. Yay! So inspiring, James Redfield. Thank you for coming. And I'll see you on February 11th in Los Angeles.
That will be fun.
And everybody go sign up for James' website alerts at celestinevision.com. Anything else you want them to know?
They can Google where I'll be on the Celestine Prophecy Inspiration Tour. That'll be part of it. And they can find online exactly what they need. I think it's Conscious Life Expo in LA.
Well, I'm very excited to see you finally. Are you bringing Sally? Please say you're bringing Sally.
Well, Sally's doing her own thing.
Yeah. I'm going to have her on next.
You need to do that. If anybody gets a hit to explore HK, holographic kinetics, there's a site online. That's what she's pursuing.
Yes, which I know nothing about, so I'm totally excited to talk to her about that. I'm excited. We'll have her on.
Therapy that heals, our deeper anxieties and traumas, even back past life, ancestral. So it's an Aboriginal based psychotherapy, which is really quite transforming. Can't tell you how.
You guys are always doing totally cutting edge stuff, and you're also never doing the same thing. You're always doing 2 different amazing things.
What's just next for us?
Thank you for being such a beautiful light in the world. Thank you for bringing that contagious love into the Superhero of Love podcast.
Carry on with your writing and all this, spreading the word. You're doing great. And
thank you. Yeah. No, love is not a bad word here.
It's about cultivating agape love, power, and influence. It's not about just calming the ego. Okay?
Right.
You can meditate and you can really calm the ego, but you can go so much further.
That's a great distinction. Thank you, James.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Oh my God, can't believe I finally got to talk to James Redfield of the Celestine Prophecy. That really was such a seminal book in my life. Go check him out at celestinevision.com. And if you like the podcast, please go rate, review it, subscribe to it, tell your friends about it. Get more superheroes of love into the fold. That's what it's all about. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.